And welcome along to the Odd Air Academy in Conversation With, and a big shout out to all the listeners on the Actors Toolkit podcast. Today we're joined by somebody from over in the States. So we've got Diane Foy. How are you, Diane?
I'm good. I'm actually Canadian.
Well, there we go. So not quite the States.
I'm in Toronto, Ontario, Canada.
Fantastic. And what's the weather like in Canada today?
It's weird. It's a little sunny and then it's a little rainy.
Well, I'm in Scotland, so it sounds like that. There's exactly the same weather that we have here.
Well, I'm from Vancouver, and the weather in Vancouver is more UK.
Yeah, it's very similar.
Pretty cloudy, pretty rainy all the time, whereas Toronto has more extremes.
Good stuff. Excellent. Okay, so first of all, do you want to tell our listeners who is Diane Foy? It's quite a broad question, but we always start with that one.
Yeah, well, I am Diane Foy, and I've changed careers a lot, but I've realized that the goal, the purpose behind all of it was my passion for arts and entertainment, and to help artists succeed in using whatever skill I have to help them succeed, because it's just so important. It's artists and creatives change lives with their talent, and I am happy to be a part of helping them succeed. And so I am a personal branding and personal development coach now, but I started out as a photographer. And again, first it was like, okay, that's my way in. That's my way to like get to be around artists and actors and musicians and performers. And so I started as a photographer. Then I transitioned into being a makeup artist, a lot more in the fashion industry, but then on my own time, I was always like on photo shoots and music videos with my artists. And I tried journalism for a little bit. And then obviously I wanted to be in the entertainment business, in the inside instead of on the outside. So I went to entertainment management school and became a publicist. And most of my clients have been like musicians and actors, films, that kind of thing, for publicity. I've been doing that for 20 years now, and transitioned a few years ago into coaching, because the main thing is that artists, musicians, actors would come to me. A lot of times the actors, their agent would send them to me. Oh, you need a publicist, go hire a publicist. But yet they wouldn't have their stuff together. They, hey, I'm an actor. I have a role in an upcoming film, television show. My agent says I need a publicist. But then they wouldn't be active on social media. They wouldn't really have their branding together, their story, what makes them unique. And so I would have to kind of send them on their way. Like, I can't help you. Go figure that out and come back. But after a while, I realized they don't know how to do that. And so I transitioned to coaching. I still do some PR, but coaching is because I can help you. I can help you in that foundation stage and really do some soul searching and figure out who you are, what makes you unique, what you want, why you want it, what are your core values, what do you stand for, and then bringing out parts of your story and your interests to share and then attract. I call it the Superfan Attraction Method, because superfans could be industry, it could be media, it could be general public, could be if you have another gig besides acting, maybe you're a coach as well, it gets you clients. Those are your superfans. And personal branding is the key.
And why is personal branding so important for actors? I mean, obviously we focus a lot on this podcast on networking as a way to kind of get ahead, but we don't really focus that much on branding. Why is it so important?
Well, the personal branding will give you the confidence and what to talk about when you're networking.
Well, there you go.
Because like when you don't do the personal branding and you go to a networking event, you're like in this room, you don't know anyone. You're like, hi, I'm an actor. So is everyone else in the room. So, whereas if you take the time to explore, I also say that personal branding, it begins with personal development. And I think a lot of times clients are surprised how deep dive we go into personal development. They're just like, aren't we going to just skip to the branding and marketing and all that? I'm like, but you don't know what you're marketing yet. So the personal development part, and actually I recently had a past client on my podcast. I want to do more coaching on my podcast so people can really see what it is I do. And she came on and I was asking her, like, what was your impression she's a young actress. And she said that she was surprised at how much we went into personal development, but also now she realizes that it helps your acting. Yes, it helps your network, but it actually helps your acting because you have more to draw on.
Mhm.
And then when you were talking about networking now, I coach people to have their kind of their first line in their bio and your first introduction when you're meeting someone. You want it to be something that makes them lean in and go, oh, tell me more.
Mhm.
Instead of, I'm an actor from London, blah, 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 who cares? But like, I'll give Stacy as an example. Now her first introduction and the first part of her bio is, I can't remember it exactly, but she leads with, she grew up in a trailer park. She had a rough life, but she's attracted to young teen roles. And because when the stuff that was going on in her life, she was able to escape to those teen TV shows. And now she wants, in the roles that she chooses, she wants to have that impact on someone,
Mhm.
on young girls, and let them know, and through her experience. And like that right away gets people to think, oh, tell me more, tell me more. Like, you're not leading with, I'm a young actress. You're leading with, I've had some stuff happen, and now my purpose is I want to encourage young women to follow their dreams, to, do whatever they need to do to come out of the situations and stand up for themselves. And she says that the personal development and personal branding, it gives you the confidence
Mhm.
to show up. And like, a lot of times my clients, we all have those deep, dark secrets that we don't tell anyone. But it's so freeing when you finally say it, put it out there, acknowledge it, and share it. But those are the things that are going to attract people to you. Another client of mine, she had never even talked about growing up in a cult, and we went from that to owning it. It is her thing. Now she leads with, I'm very confident and proud to say I'm a cult survivor. I'm a singer-songwriter and now speaker,
Mhm.
motivational speaker, because of all that work that we did.
Yeah, so not
And
just
so,
relying on where you are, it's more about who you are and how you've come to this point.
yes.
Mhm. So what is the Superfan Attraction Method that you teach, and how does that work?
So the Superfan Attraction Method, I've changed it a bit. It used to be the, fans, media, and industry, and it was like personal branding. Then it was content creation. Then it was publicity. And I kind of realized it's just way too overwhelming. So now we really focus on personal branding because that's the most important part.
Mhm.
The rest comes easy after that. And so the first stage is tap into unstoppable motivation. So that first stage is the deep dive. It's what do you really want? What is your future vision? Like, if you picture your life 10 years from now, like, what do you really want? Both in your life, in your career, in your family, in your house, like, what do you want? And then why do you want it is the important part. Because you could say, oh, I love it because I love arts and entertainment. Well, there's always a deeper reason than that. So we really deep dive into why you want this. What are your core values? What is your personality strengths, weaknesses? What are your skills? So all of this is like, and we start to touch into your story of, what are the career or life successes that you've had? It's just to build your confidence so that you can show up and go, this is me, you know, and have a clear confidence in what you want to do. Then the second phase is cultivating that magnetic brand. So then we go deeper into your story, we figure out what your bio will be, we talk about image and fashion and if for actors, what is your type? What, you know, and of course you can go in many different directions, but when you're first starting out, you want to focus in on a niche. And photography, when you go do a photo shoot, a lot of times actors just hire a photographer, will show up at the shoot and let's take some photos. But I want you to have a real clear idea of what you want those final images to look like. What are you saying with these photos? What is your character type? All that in photos. So photos, fashion, image, your bio, your stories. What stories are you going to share on social media? What stories are you going to share when you do meet someone at a networking event? All that. And then the third phase is your competitive edge. So now you've done the personal development, you've got all your brand assets together, but now, okay, but what makes you unique? And who's most likely to appreciate all that you offer? Because you're not going to be for everyone, and that's fine. And that's part of like sharing your stories, sharing your vulnerability. That is what turns someone into a super fan. Because they might I always say, like, if you think about your favorite artists, you probably love them for more than just their acting, their talent, their music. You love their personality, you love the way they dress, you love maybe they told a story that you really connected to. So you have to share all parts of yourself too. And so finding that uniqueness, we do a little research, or basically you do a little research on, who are your peers? What are their brand? What makes you unique from them? Like if you think about, if you're an actor and you're kind of always going up for the same role as that other guy, well, what is he doing? And is he getting all the roles? Why? Let's look into that and see what is unique about him. And what does that person do that maybe you want to improve on, or maybe you're like, I want nothing to do with that part of it. And then figuring out what's unique about you, and then who's most likely to appreciate it. So if you're talking fans, then maybe fans of the type of shows that you want to be on, or, industry can be your super fan. Have an agent that's a super fan of yours. Get in with casting directors and producers and directors that are just like, oh, that person, that's the one for the role. And that's where the networking comes in too. And you'll be able to showcase all that you are, so that you become that, well, there's no question, that's that person, that character is this actor. So yeah, tap into that competitive edge. And then also, like, then you can get into publicity, then you can get into really working your social media and building connections and relationships.
And what part of your personal brand do you feel is the best part for making an impact with?
I think the most important session I do with people is the why. It's why do you want this? Why do you do this? Why do you do what you do? Because it's the driving force behind everything. And especially because when you're in the arts, you're going to get knocked down a lot. It's tough. It's hard to make it. And if you don't have that clear why, it's too easy to quit. But like for me, I have that deep purpose that art and entertainment is so important. It heals people. It transforms people. It changes people's lives. So I have that passion that is so important. And so I want the actors or musicians that I work with, what is your why? Why is acting so important to you? And why are those certain roles so important to you? you know, and it usually does come down to a personal experience that you've had that is the driving force. And then that way, well, nothing's going to stop you because you're so clear on what you want and why you want it.
Yeah.
And every time you get knocked down, you're like, but I got a purpose. It's diving into that, the purpose behind what it is you're doing.
Finding what that purpose is. Yeah. You mentioned on your website about being multi-passionate. It's not something that we really talk about in the UK. What do you mean by multi-passionate, and how can you direct your branding towards being multi-passionate?
Yeah, it's one of those things that not a lot of people hear about or hear those words. And I when I talk about it, sometimes people go, "Oh, I didn't know I was one." There we go. And so there's a lot of words for it. It actually does come from a psychology term, multipotentiality. And it also goes back to Renaissance, the Renaissance period, where people were encouraged to have multiple interests. So, you know, you had a scientist slash artist, painter, you know, you had a violin player, doctor, you know, it's like it was encouraged that you would quest for knowledge and skills, and you had passion for many different areas. And I know for me, when you're multi-passionate or multi-potentialite, there's a lot of words for it, multi-hyphenate sometimes. Sometimes you think there's something wrong with you, because I felt that way. You know, I was a photographer, but I didn't stick with being a photographer. All of a sudden, the new shiny thing, makeup artist and fashion industry. So I went down that road. And then I find even when I was doing photography and makeup, even other artists would say, don't do all that. Just focus on the one thing.
Yeah, there's like a stigma about being a jack of all trades and a master of none, but there's
Yeah.
nothing wrong with that at all.
But like, if you're multi-passionate, you really dive in and you gain so much knowledge. And then, you know, then I tried journalism, then it was publicity, and even along the way there's a million other interests that I wanted to dive into. And you think, like, why is there something wrong with me? Like, why can't I stick with anything? Why do I lose interest? You get kind of bored because you dive in and learn everything you can about the subject, and then you're like, okay, I'm good. I'm satisfied. You satisfied your curiosity, and now you can move on. And so now I can look back and go, I was a photographer, I was a makeup artist, I was a journalist, I was a publicist, I was a manager, I was all these things. And now all of that comes into what I do now. But, you know, I think that it makes you more interesting if you embrace that. If you are that. The most successful actors out there are not just an actor. Sometimes they're an actor, singer, producer, dancer, director, all that. And I love that.
And how does the branding differ between being multi-passionate? You know, if you're branding yourself as, you know, Jamie Begg, the actor, rather than Jamie Begg, full stop, you know, how does the branding differ for that?
So I think how I was talking earlier about bringing your personality into your brand, and you brand yourself. And I think that I went through that too, because I used to have a company name for my publicity. Then I had a photography website. Then I had another blog, and no one knew I did any of it, which was very frustrating. It's hard to keep up. It was almost like separate lives. It's hard. And having a different website and web social for everything, that's a lot of work. And so, but by bringing them all together, it's like I'm working with an artist now, and he's like a entrepreneur, but he's also a singer-songwriter, poet. He's a he was a race car driver, motorcycle guy, and painter. And I think that just makes you more interesting to me. And so I building your brand about that, when you're starting out, it does help to have a bit of a focus, you know. I think when I started coaching, I think I learned that you can do it all, you just can't do it all at once. And so some of my interests, I say they're on hold. So I put all my effort into this. I can always add layers. And J-Lo, Jennifer Lopez, is the perfect example of a multi-passionate, multi-potentialite, because she built her career in layers. She didn't all of a sudden become J-Lo. She was a dancer, a successful dancer. Then I want to be an actor. She was a successful actor. Oh, I want to be a singer. She was a successful singer. And she built it in layers as the years went on. Then she started producing her own projects and films. And she was a television host. And like, she added the layers. Now she has a skincare line, and she could do whatever she wants now because she is the brand of J-Lo.
Yeah, it's all under the one umbrella, the one brand.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
But she built it in layers.
Yeah. So what clients have you worked with, and how have you helped them to get ahead?
Yeah, well, as a publicist, that's where the names come in. Like, I worked with Perry Farrell from Jane's Addiction, Mackenzie Phillips, Tyler Blackburn. He was from Pretty Little Liars. Yeah. Big Sugar, a lot of Canadian bands, Big Sugar and DOA, and I got to work with Robert Loggia at one time. And so a lot of actors and musicians and the celebrities, the famous people. But majority of my time was spent helping up and coming actors and musicians. And so that's more of a challenge. So it was always fantastic to be part of that journey. And I find now through coaching, now it's really intimate one-on-one. And through coaching, it's artists that, well, the first time when I say that I got into coaching because artists would come to me and they just didn't have what they need to be successful at publicity. So my first client, after I did a lot of coaching certificates and programs and learned about coaching, the next person that came to me for publicity, I offered coaching first. And it was a wonderful opportunity to be able to do that personal brand coaching and then transition into publicity. Then she was like the dream client for publicity. And that's what personal branding does. It makes you that dream client for agents, managers. And so it was successful, and she had her branding together and she had her stories, and that was so great. And then since then, I've coached a variety of actors and musicians are kind of the main thing I do. But there's been some, again, that I found I kept attracting the multi-passionate ones. So even my own messaging, even in the coaching world, they're like niche down, niche down. I'm like, can it be all creatives? No, you got to pick one. Performing artists. No, you got to narrow it down. Actors and musicians, that's as far as I'm going, you know?
Yeah.
Because even in coaching world, they're like, you got to niche down. But the people that they'd come to me because they're an actor or a musician, but then they'd almost be too shy and embarrassed to tell me that they do other things, that they're an actor, but they're also a graphic designer and they want to produce their projects and they want to write their projects. But everyone tells me I can't do all that. I'm a singer-songwriter, but I'm also a filmmaker animator. And everyone tells me I can't do it all. And I think for a lot of them, I'm the first person to be going, no, that's fantastic. Let's put it all out there. That just makes everything more interesting. Yeah. So
we touched on it earlier on as to how you would start off a session with somebody, by finding out who they are and, what kind of person they are. What does a typical session look like with you?
So I will offer your people a free discovery session so that they can experience that. And so the first meeting would just be getting to know what you want. What are the challenges that you have? Like, what is holding you back? And I do find there has been a definite theme. They might say it in different ways, but it always comes down to fear and a lack of knowledge. Fear of failure, fear of putting yourself out there, fear of rejection, fear of judgment. And then the lack of knowledge of like, well, I don't know how. Social media is overwhelming. I know I'm supposed to do it, but I don't know how to do it. I know personal branding is important, but I don't know how. Or I don't know, have the marketing knowledge. So it's fear and lack of knowledge is what it usually comes down to.
Mm.
And so we figure out if we're the fit to work together. And if we are, then the coaching goes through my method step by step. So we start with, what is your future vision? What do you really want? Then if you need help with goal setting, we can get into a system of goal setting. Then it's, what are your core values? What do you stand for? And then what are those limiting beliefs? What are those blocks that are holding us back? And, what's stopping you from reaching out to that agent or casting director? And getting the fears down and overcoming the limiting beliefs. What parts of your story would be most impactful? What would draw people in to really connect with you? So that's the really powerful stuff. The rest is just like comes easy. The marketing comes easy if you have that and you're able to just stand and go, here I am. This is my story. This is what I really want. This is why I want it. And I'm so confident that in my skills right now, and I know I can do it. It just has that energy. And then that alone, the confidence attracts people to you. But to be able to tell like your unique story of what makes you separate and get people to lean in and want to talk to you more at that networking event, that's the real power of it.
Excellent. Right. We've got two questions left, and they're both questions that I ask everybody on the podcast. For the first one is, what is the one sole piece of advice that you would give actors in order to get ahead? If you could only give them one piece of advice, what would it be?
Figure out what you really want and why you want it. It all comes down to that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Knowing what your why is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the second question, if you could change one thing about the entertainment industry, what would it be and why?
I think more support for the development and more support for the gap, how you were saying before we even started that, most acting schools, they teach you how to act and then just throw you out in the world and say, okay, now I'm supposed to get an agent. I don't know what and so that gap. And that's why I got into the coaching, because again, you have the acting school and you'd even get an agent. And then a lot of times, because I'm in Canada, a lot of times the reason for the PR thing is because they want their work visa for the US. And apparently, if you can get some press, that helps. And I'm always the one going, the press don't care about helping you get your work visa. You got to give me more reason of why the press should cover you than because you need a work visa. And that's what you get into your story and all that. And why should media cover you? We need that.
Excellent. Well, that's been brilliant, Diane. If our clients wanted to find you, how could they find you on social media, on the web?
So I'm dianefoy.com, Diane Foy Arts on all socials. And I have two offers. I'll give you two offers.
Oh, fantastic.
So one, there's the free Superfan Attraction Method playbook. You can get that at dianefoy.com/freebie. And it goes through the method of the 3 phases, all the different, it kind of shows you the roadmap of what you need to kind of do to succeed. Then it's also what I coach on. And after a few emails, you'll even get invited to do a mini course of that for free. But I'm also opening up some sessions this fall of free discovery sessions. So if you would like to even just book an appointment with me, and we'll just talk about where you are and where you want to go with your career and what do you need help with. And if I'm the right person, if I'm not, maybe I can point you in the direction of someone else that would be perfect for what you're looking for. I think if you go just to my website on the coaching page, there'll be a link, or I think it's just dianefoy.com/booking, and just book an appointment with me, fill out the form of what you want to talk about, and we'll chat.
Fantastic. Excellent, Diane. Well, that's been absolutely brilliant. If they wanted to check out your podcast, what's the name of it and where can they find it?
It's Superfan Attraction, personal branding for artists and creatives. That's again, dianefoy.com/podcast. It's all podcasting apps. I actually started doing video this year too. So it's also on YouTube. Haven't really figured out how to go to YouTube yet, but it's on my website. So you get the video version, you get the audio version, you get the transcript and all that. And the latest episodes I'm starting to do coaching sessions on the podcast. And the first one is an actress that you might want to hear. We talk about money blocks, charging for her services, and all the reasons why she has trouble even invoicing people, And again, it comes down to your background and how you grew up and all those limiting beliefs that hold us back from really getting out there. So, and then soon by the time this airs, probably I'll have another coaching session on there as well.
Fantastic. Excellent. Well, thank you very much for joining us, Diane. That's been so insightful. Loads of nuggets of information there. So thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you. This was fun.